Hi, hello. My name is Laura Moretti. I teach early modern Japanese literature at the University of Cambridge, and this is the fifth session in our introduction to how to read Japanese early modern printed texts and how to transcribe them. The previous four sections can be found on our webpage, www.wakancambridge.com, under Early Modern Japanese Cursive and Teaching Sessions. So a lot will be taken for granted because I'm building on the previous four sessions. Today, we are going to tackle sōrōbun, how to read, and to a certain extent, how to transcribe sōrōbun. What is sōrōbun? Sōrōbun is a form of written language, artificial written language that was used in the Edo period for a number of things, including letters, formal and informal letters, contracts of all sorts of types, as well as in printed books. And today's session will focus on printed materials only. It is an artificial written language that is a hybrid language, hybrid between vernacular Japanese and classical Chinese. So today you will really need to bring to the session all your knowledge of classical Japanese grammar, as well as, to a certain extent, your knowledge of classical Chinese and its syntax. If you want to know more about sōrōbun and how it falls onto what I call the spectrum of multiple literacies in the Edo period, I refer you to my most recent book, Pleasure in Profit, and in chapter 1, I deal with sōrōbun and other forms of written languages of the 17th century. But today, I will also refer to other materials when it comes to understanding how sōrōbun works in terms of, in particular, as a written language and what the grammar rules of sōrōbun are. There are two resources that we have put on our webpage. One is a manual for sōrōbun that Professor Yamabe Susumu of Nishogakusha Daigaku and myself have created for the summer school. This material is only available to those people who have enrolled on our summer school program, but for those who are not enrolled on our program, we would like to refer to this excellent introduction to sōrōbun as a language, as a written language that has been published by Yada Tsutomu in 2012. So for those of you who are enrolled on the summer school, this video is to be viewed and used in conjunction with the manual that you can access. We are going to really just look at the tip of a huge iceberg in terms of sōrōbun, and we're going to do that with this manual. Yes, in the Edo period, there were a lot of manuals that were produced, manuals that were conceived to teach how to write sōrōbun, but also how to read sōrōbun. And we're going to therefore learn, approach sōrōbun in the way in which it was taught and learned in the Edo period. We are going to do that looking at one passage from this book entitled Chonin Shōjō Kagami. As you can see, it is a mirror, kagami, for writing letters, shōjō, and the title promises that it is for chonin, for townspeople. The date, as you can see, is Bunka Nananen, which is 1810. The text that we're going to use is in my own collection, but as you can see, there are a number of images that can be accessed via the Koten Seiki Sougō Mokuroku database that Kokubungaku Kenkyū Ryokan, the National Institute of Japanese Literature, is wonderfully keeping up for us. as you can see, this is the table of content, and despite the title, Chōnin Shōjō Kagami, there is actually a Shinobu. So we're going to read a letter, or better, a letter template written in sōrōbun, in the language known as sōrōbun, and it is a letter that ideally should be used by one specific, one of the 4 estates at the time, and that of samurai or bushi. The letter that we are going to read is located here on the table of content, but we're going to read the title by moving into the text itself. As you can see, the letter is spreading between the recto, this is the 7th folio, the verso of the 7th folio, the recto of the 8th, and partially the verso of the 8th folio. The title. So as you can see, we have an awful lot of kanji, but that's sōrōbun. As I said, it's a hybrid between vernacular Japanese and classical Chinese. So on the surface, it really looks like Chinese. Kanji, 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 kanji. Because this is a printed manual that is meant to teach how to write, but also and more interestingly for us, how to read sōrōbun, it comes with a very handy furigana that gives you the reading of a lot of the kanji, not all, but the majority of. So here the title comes with this maru that indicates this is a new section. The title reads Tera iri no jo. So just some recap from the previous sessions. This is all hentai kana variants that you have already seen. So in this session, I'm not going really to talk about kana variants. For this, I would refer you to the previous sessions. And what I would like to point out, first of all, is that jo, shi, ya, u needs to be transcribed as shi, ya, u, despite the fact that we read it as jo, but shi doesn't have a dakuten, so we don't want a dakuten in our honkoku, in our diplomatic transcription. Ya should be small in our thinking because it's jo, but it is transcribed as a big ya, and then we have u. As I said, I'm not going really to focus on this, but just to remind you, and I'm just getting out of this for a second, just to remind you that we are using our basic rules for producing a honkoku, which can be found on our website. And what I'm saying right now about the furigana can be found under the point on furigana. Okay, so this is just a quick reminder of that. But today's job is not really to talk again about hiragana, hentagana, and rules for transcribing it. It's more about sōrōbun. So no here, it appears with the kanji, but also with its reading in no. And what is interesting here is that the compound with this kanji and this, that normally we would read nyūgaku, is glossed in a different way. Again, we needed to maintain in the furigana what appears in the furigana, the original, in this case, tera iri. Now, tera iri makes perfect sense as a reading for nyūgaku because nyūgaku is to enter school, and the school at the time would have been a terakoya school. That's why tera iri was also another way of reading this compound. Then we move into the first sentence of the letter template. And I would just read, please follow the transcription, try to follow the original. What I suggest is that you stop on this part of the video and try to get your eyes used to how a particular kanji is rendered in cursive. I will just read. Go shisoku sama, konnichi, o higara yoku go nyūgaku nasare soro. And the sentence actually continues, but I will stop. I will stop here. Soro is really the key in sōrōbun. Soro is put at the end of a sentence. The sentence can really end there, or it can be a secondary clause or a relative clause and therefore continue. But Soro there indicates that somehow the sentence we are reading has come to a halt. That's why in sōrōbun, we really don't need punctuation, because when we have a Soro, just as Soro, or as we will see together with something else, we understand that the sentence is coming to a certain type of halt. And we will see also that Soro is rendered in many very different calligraphic styles. So that's a little bit that will require your eyes to get used to that particular way of rendering it. Now, the language used in sōrōbun is highly formulaic. So there are a certain number of set phrases. Today we will see some of them. And what also needs to be pointed out at this juncture is that it is a hybrid written language that combines vernacular Japanese and its grammar and classical Chinese and its grammar. And this is clearly visible in this structure here. So Soro is typical of sōrōbun, as I said. What precedes, in this case, is the verb nasu, which is a yodan verb. And it is preceded by this little squiggly thing, which, if transcribed, is actually this character here. And in the manual that we have produced for the summer school participants, you will find much more information about what I'm saying here. So what is going on here is that we have a structure that uses the classical Chinese syntax. And this kanji here, in a way, displays what in vernacular Japanese at the time was the jodoshi, ru or raru. Ru, raru, used for honorific or passive, and then other meanings. But in this case, I would like to concentrate on the honorific. So what you are required to do is actually to recognize that this is a construct that follows the classical Chinese syntax. So you have to flip things around, despite the fact that we do not have diacritic marks. We will see that diacritic marks can be inserted, and we will see in the manuals some of them soon, but normally they were not inserted outside of the context of the manual, the sōrōbun manual. So it is your job to flip this around. You read first this and then you go back. And it is also your job to reconstruct the grammar. Here the furigana helps a lot, but normally these texts do not come with furigana. So you have to understand that it is nyūgaku, and this is the verb nasu. You need to conjugate it in mizenke, na-sa, because it is followed by the jodoshi ru that is indicated with this kanji and precedes the verb nasu. So na-sa-re, and ru is conjugated as re in renyoke because it is followed by soro. Soro always wants a renyoke before itself. Soro works as a hojodoshi, so as a supplementary verb. Now, Soro makes the whole sentence very polite. It's pretty much a matter of register, but also indicates that this is a particular written language, i.e. the sōrōbun style. So sōrōbun really requires that you bring to the table your knowledge of classical grammar. You know how to conjugate your verbs, you know how jodoshi works, and how to attach things. In this case, nasare soro. What comes before are just clusters of nouns, and roughly the meaning, this is a rough translation, so it's really just to give you an idea of what is there. Please polish it as you go along. But roughly it says, your son today, on this auspicious day, Ohigara yoku, has started going to school. The sentence here is not finished, as I said, because this sōro is not in shushike, it is in rentaike, and it follows, another sentence follows. Before I move to the other sentence, please look at this, the way in which this kanji has been rendered in cursive. We will see more of this. So, the sentence that follows is modified by sōro. So sōro modifies onkoto. So everything that comes before sōro that we have read so far is nominalized by onkoto. And onkoto is the subject of what comes after. Medetaku zonji tatematsuri sōro. So here we have a sōro that really ends the sentence. This is shushike. And it is again preceded by a structure that uses the syntax of the classical Chinese. So we need to first read this second character and then go back to this first character. In this case, the diacritic reten is there to help us doing that. Obviously, the reten works like in kanbun kundoku. Now, this verb, zonzu, is a kami nidan verb, and it is connected to another verb, tatematsuru. In order to connect it, it needs to be conjugated into renyoke. So zonji, and then tatematsuru itself needs to be conjugated in renyoke because it is followed by soro. Zonji, tatematsuri, soro. In this case, there is no furigana to help us. But as I said, the lack of furigana is the norm for sōrōbun, for materials written in sōrōbun, apart from the manuals. Meaning-wise, so the fact that your son today has started going to school, I think that this is very auspicious. On medetaku. I will talk a little bit about this taku in a while. Let's move on to the next sentence. Zentai goshūzai. And up to this point is just kanji, 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 kanji. Again, stop the video, take some time to look at how the kanji has been rendered in cursive. And the meaning is pretty straightforward. We're talking about the shisoku, we are talking about the sun, and the sun here we are praising the sun as somebody who is in himself clever. He's very talented. Zentai go shūzai. What follows is what interests me at this point. We have again sōro, and I will pause. Sōro is preceded by ni, and then it is followed by e and ba. It's ha, no dakuten, but it is ba for the setsuzoku joshi, because in this case. First, let's look at this sōro. You might think it is very different from this sōro and from this sōro. It's just a little chong. And that is indeed what happens to sōro. This is from the Kodama's Kuzushi Jiji 10 that we use for the summer school, that we have suggested for the summer school. And as you can see, sōro can start in very recognizable ways down to this little chong. It's actually referred to in jargon, semi-jargon, as chong sōro. Because you expect sōro to be there, you don't bother to write it nicely. You can just write a little chong. And it is your responsibility to recognize that this is sōro bun, and therefore there must be a sōro, and therefore this little tail is the sōro in question. Now sōro is actually a yodan verb. So it is conjugated as so. So sōro is the shushike, and the rentaike is sōro. But the so remains always the same, but ra plus u, that is rendered in ro, vocalized as ro in shushike and entaike, when u conjugates, you have to think in terms of sora wa, for example, sora wazu, or sora I, for example, followed by te, soro, soro, sora e, for example, followed by ba, and then sora e if it is mizeke. In other words, the sound soro needs to change to sora when it conjugates. And this is something that not everyone agrees. There are a lot of people reading this as soroeba, but grammatically that's not correct. So for our summer school, we will use the correct reading with the conjugation of sora e ba. And ba, as I said, is a setsuzoku joshi that indicates in this case because he is, your son, is so naturally talented. And then the sentence continues. Before we move on to the next sentence, though, I want you to look at this little ni, soraeba. This ni, normally the katakana looking ni, so far in the previous 4 sessions, we have suggested that you actually transcribe it as hiragana ni because it comes from the jibo for ichi, ni, san no ni. In sōrōbun, though, the convention is that when ni appears in smaller size, slightly to the right of the line, as in this case, you keep it in smaller size. So that's a convention for sōrōbun, which is different from the vernacular Japanese that we normally transcribe for the summer school. So please make a note of this difference. Ni is nothing than the renyoke of nari, the dante no jodoshi. So in this case is ni plus soro, nari plus soro. Again, soro is a matter of register. So zentai go shūzai ni soraeba. And then the sentence continues. We have just said because he is naturally talented. Zanji ni. Again, the little ni that we have seen now, in this case, is not nari. This is just the kakujoshi, the case particle ni, but it gets transcribed in smaller font as the ni before. Banji, banji, gojotatsu, gojotatsu. And then we have a Soro at the end. Again, the calligraphic rendering is slightly different from what we have seen so far. And we have a massive classical Chinese structure that precedes it. In this case, we are very lucky because we have all the content that tells us what to skip and what to read. There is a reten, therefore I skip. There is a ni, therefore I skip. At that point, I have an ichi down there, so I start from here. Go za. As you can see, at the kanji, it is go plus suwaru, which is the goza, and I will talk a little bit about this in a moment, but it remains in modern Japanese as gozaimasu. So goza, I read it first, then I need to go back to number 2. This is the character for ari. Again, I would suggest that you stop the video and actually look very carefully at this ari because this is a very commonly used kanji in this particular cursive rendering. Aru, ari, the shushike would be ari, but it is read aru because it is followed by, or better, well, preceded, but actually we need to read it afterwards because of the reten, by beshi. Again, stop the video and make a note, a mental picture of this beshi. It looks like a hiragana te at first sight. Patto miru to, kore te janai. It's not te. This is actually beshi, and it is nothing else than this character. So whenever you find this shape in sōrōbun coming before a verb, you think, wait a second, this could be beshi. Let's see if meaning-wise it makes sense. Beshi, it's conjugated in beku, because it is then followed, and then we have to move on to the next bit that we have left behind because we jumped backwards. Here we have a reten, so I can't read this. I have to read this before. We have just seen this before, zonji. And this is a much more cursive way for the same tatematsuru that we have seen before. Beku is in renyoke because it is followed by another verb, zonji, tatematsuri, soro. And tatematsuri, renyoke because of soro. So if I read it all together, it is gojotatsu, goza, aru beku, zonji, tatematsuri, soro. Because your son is naturally clever, I believe that there will be improvement in everything in a very short time. So pretty much he's writing a letter saying, I hear your son has started school because he's so good, he will improve in everything very quickly. Here, though, you can appreciate how the Chinese syntax come into play in sōrōbun. And imagine, I repeat this concept again, that outside the context of manuals, the furigana would not be there and the diacritic marks will not be there. So you have to do it in your head, okay? At this point, the letter, one more thing, goza was very much used in sōrōbun. As I said, the register is very much similar to the gozaimasu that we use nowadays. It can be presented as goza soro, as simple as that, but in this case is more complicated because the structure is more complicated. But if you find these two characters, on, the honorific on, and za for suwaru, and then a soro or something else, in sōrōbun you think, it is gozaru, gozasoro. Okay? Moving on. Shitagatte. Kono sumi, fude, shinjo, tsukamatsuritaku, soro. Okay, shitagatte, I'll talk about this in a little while. Kono sumi fude shinjo tsukamatsuritaku soro. Soro is not a problem. It is the same shape as the first two soro that we have seen in this text. Taku is not new. We have seen it in mede taku, and taku is the jodoshi tashi that express a desire to do something. Tsukamatsuru obviously is kenjogo is a humble verb for suru. Tashi in sōrōbun was normally rendered in this way. Yes, there are a lot of kanji in sōrōbun. We are looking only at taku today and this te actually, that render things that normally in vernacular Japanese will be in hiragana. Tashi being a jodoshi that express, as I said, desire, and normally will be written in hiragana. But sōrōbun, because the idea behind sōrōbun is that it is all in kanji, you need a kanji there. Sometimes, if I go actually back, to this sora eba, this ba, I could have transcribed it with the kanji mono, for mono. So that's a choice that I could have done, because in sōrōbun, this ha can be also rendered with the character, which is the jibo for this ha, the character for mono. Sorry, going back to where we were, Tashi, and then this te is shikoshite, normally read as shikoshite as a kanji, is normally used for the te that follows normally a renyoke. Meaning-wise, it's saying, because of that, therefore, I am sending as a gift this ink and brush, very appropriate to start going to a school in Edo period Japan. Then we go on, and we're almost there. Isasaka goshugi. And then the sentence continues. So we're finishing here. Isasaka goshugi. And then again, we have we have Soro at the end of there. So we know that the sentence ends there. But we have a massive classical structure. Sorry, I should have put it over here, but you can see what I'm meaning. So goshugi. Again, we have number 2, so we can't read it. We start from here. Moshi agu, because it is conjugated appropriately to jump. This is 1, to jump to number 2, which is again the te-looking kanji, which is beshi. And beshi, in this case, needs the shushike before it. So moshi agu. Agu is a shimon nidan verb. Shushike is gu. So moshi agu. And then beku made. Made. And then again, we have a reten. In this case, it is just the wood block that is cracked, probably where the left bit of re is. So you can't see the re, but originally would have been a re. So we have to read first this. Kaku no. The kanji is the same kanji as kono, this kono here. But in this case, we read it as kaku no. And then we go backwards and we read this kanji for gotoku. This kanji for gotoku, again, pause the video here, get your eyes used to it, because it looks like the hiragana me. It is not in sōrōbun, this is gotoku. Kaku no gotoku. So once we have read everything in the right order, according to the diacritic marks, as moshi agu beku made kaku no gotoku. Then we go on reading. This is the ni that we have commented about, and the goza soro that I have talked about. And then ijo, that's the end of really the letter. So what is it saying? Isasaka goshugi moshi agu beku made kaku no gotoku goza soro. So I'm just sending this just as a small token to celebrate the occasion. And that's the completion of the letter. So I hope that this gives you an idea of what is involved in reading sōrōbun. This manual is very friendly to us because it gives all the reading, or the majority of the reading, in furigana. And also it gives a lot of diacritics. That is not true for real text outside of manuals. Now, you might be thinking, why do I bother reading sōrōbun? Sōrōbun is actually very important because, as I said, letter correspondence was written in sōrōbun. Love letters are a different affair, and those of you who come to the summer school, you will normally have on the program one session that deals with that. Not necessarily love letters, but akin to love letters. So ちょっとお楽しみにしておいてください。So letters, correspondence are written in sōrōbun. Documents, historical archival documents are written in sōrōbun. And this is an example of a document whereby a person has borrowed money. And you can find the document and the transcription that we did sometime in, in some previous summer schools on the website under Gokan Cambridge. .com and under teaching sessions. So these historical materials are normally referred to as komonjo, and this is really the daily bread of hardcore historians. So if you are in historical studies, this is the kind of materials that you normally read on a daily basis. These are all handwritten, as you can see, kanji, 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 kanji. There is no furigana, there are no diacritics, but the same rules that we have sort of run through today and those that you find in the manual are necessary to read these materials. In the manual, you will also find a number of dictionaries that are specific to read the formulaic language used in sōrōbun. But sōrōbun is also used in a number of printed materials outside of the sōrōbun manuals. And what I'm going to work on is a short passage from this Gokan. This is a Gokan, so this is a very late kusazoshi. This one, as you can see, is by Ryutei Tanehiko, illustrated by Utagawa Kunisada, and a normal Gokan. Sorry, I stopped sharing for a second, but a normal Gokan will look in this way. The text introduced within the illustrations, and the text is all in hiragana, or the majority is in hiragana, what Uda Toshihiko refers to as maru kana hyoki. So you would think, why on earth do we need a sōrōbun for this kind of materials? Well, and the date of this is 1826, Bunsei Kyunen. We need sōrōbun because a lot of paratextual material, so not the text itself, but what goes around the text, may well use sōrōbun, in particular when the author, or more often the Hammoto, the publisher, addresses the extra diegetic readers, addresses us, the readers. In the copy of this Gokan that I own, and as you can see, there are many other copies available. The one at the Kokkaito Shokan is fully digitized. So if you're interested in this text, by all means do visit the Kokkai website. My copy comes with a very extensive Zohan Mokuroku. These were booksellers, or better, publishers' catalogs that would come at the end of a volume to indicate, you have read this, well, I've also published this, and so you might want to read all these other materials. Some are from, let me move my head here, some are from Ryutei Tanehiko, not all. As you can see, we have Jippen Shaiku and so on and so forth. What I would like to deal with is this little advertisement, which is put forward by the publisher of this Gokan, who is Tsuruya Kiemon, who's working very much with Ryutei Tanehiko at this point in time. If we blow up, we find information about Tsuruya Kiemon, we find his address, we see his crest, and we find also his yago, his shop name. On the right here, we see the advertisement for some materials other than books that he would sell, being a soshia or a toya. Edo meibutsu nishikie suri. So he was also selling nishikie. He was also selling uchiwa and jigami. And as you can see, this gives you the idea of what kind of bookseller slash publisher he was, referred to, toya or soshi. They would sell this material, these very cheap materials, and all sorts of other things. Now, the bit in blue is the explanation that comes following these products. And here, Tsuruya Kiemon is addressing us directly. So sōrōbun is used. it is not hardcore sōrōbun, if you allow me to say this, in the sense that, as you can see, there is also some hiragana here and there. But sōrōbun it is. So we have nennen, mezurashiki shinpan, shinajina, deki, tsukamatsuri, soro, aida. So up to deki, it's very close to vernacular Japanese, isn't it? So year after year, we have published a number of new materials that are mezurashi, that are rare. And it probably refers to what is advertised here. But then after deki, we have tsukamatsuri that we have seen in the previous letter, plus the soro. Aida is there. It was normally used in sōrōbun to indicate cause, because, blah, blah, blah. And then again, it goes on in something which turns out to be sōrōbun. Goyō no setsu wa. So when you need them, what do you do? So really here he is addressing us. What do you do, reader, if you want, customer, if you want to come and buy these exciting products? So here you can see this thing that you might think, oh, is that a katakana hi? Actually, no. So this is just the kanji that we have seen before for ru, raru, honorific in this case. We leave it aside because by having studied sōrōbun, you know that you have to read it after what comes after. So we first read what comes after. So what comes after is this kanji here, which is the cursive for this, osu, which is the honorific for you, that in this case is connected to tsuku. So ose, tsu. And then we have to conjugate in order to connect it to ru, ra, and tsuku is a shimonidan, so o se tsuke rare. So really here, everything that we have learned, you have to bring it to the table to read it aloud. In a way, you can get away by reading it silently. But if you want to read it aloud, as we would normally do in a classroom setting, you really need to do your grammar. So o se tsuke rare. So we read 1, 2, backwards, 3, o se tsuke rare. And it continues. So I use the rein-yoke here, and then I need to leave this behind. This is what in the previous text looked like a te. It is beshi, kano no ka. And actually, you can see it much closer to the kanji that it is the cursive of. We have again this kanji here for ru, raru, and then we have sta, which in this case is kudasu. It's like the te kudasai nowadays. So we have to read 1, 2, 3. We would have a reten here. So kudasaru, beku, soro. Everything needs to be conjugated. So really, you need a very strong classical grammar to make sense of this. Okay. And over here, you have another advertisement for the materials that they are publishing. I will leave that to you. You can stop here on the website. You can stop here and get your head around how to read it aloud. But the idea is that all these paratextual materials very often use sōrōbun when the publisher, the writer, addresses the reader, the extra diegetic reader directly. So sōrōbun is very important. On our summer school, we will have different exercises in reading more sōrōbun, and I hope that today's video has helped you navigate into that. And that is all. Thank you very much. Bye.